But before we start, just a little experiment. How many of you watched Rugrats when it was still airing new episodes? My prediction is that half or less than half of you did, but we'll see in the comments. So the crown jewel of Klasky Csupo rears its head back into the hearts and minds of children everywhere, turning its lovable, wholesome brand of infantile chaos into a CGI-style reboot available on Paramount+. Does it hold up? Diving into this 45-minute special called Second Time Around, like with the Animaniacs reboot, chooses dinosaurs as their themes of introducing the titular characters. I'm guessing the dinosaurs kind of correlate with like themes of the old. One of the biggest complaints about the formerly upcoming reboot was the art style, and I'll admit, it looks rougher than the bottom of my feet if I were to run barefoot over molten rock. But it's functional, and while like with Camp Coral, the Nickelodeon brand of CGI doesn't wow me, I will say it looks better than Camp Coral, and with a smoother animation style, it wasn't a deal breaker. Take the first scene here, it has a lot of fast movement and slow movement.
They said it was impossible to bring them back to life.
While it leaves a lot to be desired, the lighting is great. It doesn't give off the impression that it was rushed or that people don't care to get even the bare minimum down. The outside lighting looks better than Camp Coral, and the most important part, the adventure is worth having. We have Tommy Pickles, the main character within the series, known for being brave and taking things on, observing the dinosaurs cautiously but as close as he could, with Susie, Phil, and Lil, and Chucky right behind them.
This place isn't even on the map. Don't want to scare them with any loud noises. Really? It wasn't me, Lillian. It was my foot. That was my butt.
They all show their personalities and roles within the group quite clearly, with Susie kind of being the voice of reason, aka smarterer baby of the group, Phil and Lil being the adventurous twins that they are, often dirty and argumentative towards each other, and Chucky the extremely anxious and introspective one of the group. And say what you want about the show, these characters have charisma, and that's really all people want when it comes to the reboots. Are the core of the characters still there? Are they still as entertaining and compelling as they were before, if not better?
Guys, I'm not exactly sure, but I think I lost the key. Tommy Pickles! The driver has one job!
Just to keep everything in perspective here, they're playing make-believe. None of this is real. I mean, yeah, it's all animated moving images, but I mean, within the show, they aren't where they are. How this adventure is better than most AAA games on the market now. How is that possible? They introduce attention, each character has slightly different motives, the dinosaur is huge, the camera positioning is great. I want to be there. I want to experience this adventure, this story. I've been sold on this story, and it isn't even 5 minutes yet. As they try to escape, the iconic Reptar toy, what a toy of choice for this adventure, falls overboard, causing them all to stop. As if you're a kid, you're not letting your favorite toy get destroyed.
I'll save you, Reptar! At least you won't get crushed alone.
This episode centers in on Bravery and the struggle that Chucky has achieving that consistently. To anyone that knows Chucky, Bravery and Chucky go together as well as YouTube and Problem Free. And I realized I wrote that just as my channel got freaking nay-nayed earlier this week. Chucky freezes up in the moment, the classic middle option between fight or flight, and even though Tommy tries to distract the dinosaur in the moment, his screwdriver dies, or is sleepy, as Susie calls it, leaving him with one option: to spray milk in its face. Or Angelica's face, who was the dinosaur all along. Unorthodox, but it does get the job done.
Aunt Didi! Angelica! Did Tommy do that? Yes, he did, Aunt Didi. Babies are so mean. Tommy, that wasn't very nice, and we don't waste Mommy's milk.
Who wrote this episode? Angelica leaves the kids' picnic blanket, to which, in the Rugrats style, we get a little bit of the adult's perspective. Betty throws a football, Chaz was supposed to catch it, and now we realize where Chucky gets some of his traits from. This 45-minute special wastes very little time in showing character development. For you to understand these characters and immerse yourself into this world, a la putting the slice in Slice of Life, the show show relies on its ability to pull you in and be a part of the adventure. And I wouldn't say anything within this episode was laugh out loud funny, nor do I think they were trying to be. It's a calmer show definitely, in comparison to what Nickelodeon usually puts out in the animated department nowadays. The kids go through the picnic basket, finding anything to eat or play with.
Hey, you tinkleheads! You better not have eaten all the good food!
Phil had some mushy taters.
No ma'am, you walked away from the picnic, you get to the back of the line. What kind of world would we be in if you could retroactively call dibs on food? Buffet rules are in order here. If you want it, line up for it. If not, someone else may get it. Plus, you walked away for like 20 seconds to do what? I thought you didn't want to be around them because they sprayed mommy's milk on you.
It's okay, Chucky. He can't hurt you. He's way out on that island. Come on, let's be brave guys together. Starting now.
Okay, Chaz and Chucky, the best dynamic I didn't know that I needed. There's just something so oddly charming about both of them being really outwardly scared that I feel like they both understand their nuanced anxieties on a level that the common person would shrug off. Like if I can get into an episode that focused on them as a duo, that'd be really fun and interesting to sink my teeth into. Betty, who now runs a coffee shop solo, hands over a coffee to them named Gen Z. Those jokes are never funny. Meanwhile, Chucky decides because of Chaz calling him brave, he wants to give it a try, to which they test him with the mighty challenge of eating mud. Of course, apprehensive because not all babies like mud, he pushes back against the notion.
Do you have any pasties without mud?
No such thing! Eat up, mateys!
But some people don't like to eat mud, Lillian. Tell her, Tommy.
And just like that, Chucky's definition of bravery has changed. He decides, under baby peer pressure, to eat the mud, which was only a little bit terrible, according to him. However, within this mud pie was a worm that he kind of ate half of. Remember that. They go on with business as usual, with Lou Pickles, Tommy and Angelica's grandfather, looking over them while doing yoga and... Hold up. Wait a minute. Rewind that clip again. What did they bite into? Nothing. He bit nothing. She bit nothing. I can't unsee this now.
Dad, what happened to the doorbell cam I installed for you?
Turns out I'm more of a face-to-face kind of guy. Hey, big bro. I don't need any of your digital garbage. Not the doorbell, not the seniors dating app you put on my phone. What's wrong with Silver Beagles? Let's make a deal, shall we? You boys don't interfere with my technology, and I won't tell you that you're being overgrown kids.
Speaking of bites, I'll bite. I think this show has taken a great drop into integrating a modern society into the show, aside from that Gen Z joke. What makes this a lot more palatable than, let's say, the Fairly OddParents, for example, during its selfie moment, is that here, these characters retain who they are. Even when they're reacting to new objects, more modern objects, the objects themselves remain props and not the focus of the scene, whereas in Big Fairy Share Scare, for example, the joke is that they wanted to take a selfie, which made no sense as both Wanda and Cosmo aren't known for wanting to take pictures of themselves randomly for no reason. This isn't to say that if the story naturally moved in a way and you wanted to keep technology up to par, that you could just, swap out what you used back then for what you use now for something a little bit more recent. But here, the focus isn't about the door cam, but rather how Stu and Drew represent different ways of living life, but both are a pain and lose sides. The door cam and the dating app are just a modernized prop, and you can go back to older episodes to see them bicker about things in the 90s. We see Tommy and the others playing, however without Chucky, who is seen sulking away from the group.
What's the matter, Chucky? It's just life, Tommy. It's so hard. I'm just gonna sit here and not be anything differenter than I always am. Well, then I'll sit here too.
Get you a friend like Tommy. It'll make your life so much better. So there's two important things here, one new and one just like the original series. Like its older counterpart, Angelica still serves as the main antagonist, pushing away the game that the others were playing perfectly content and playing something that would make her the center of attention with something that Susie sees right through but plays along with anyway. Within this, due to the naivety and semi-trust that they all have with Angelica, Chucky blurts out the worm that he ate half of before, as Angelica plays Doctor, leading into her crafting a lie on the spot. Mind you, she's like 3 and she's displaying this uncanny ability to tell a convincing story, a convincing lie. And I might be giving her a little bit too much credit, but she lies in a way that a convincing liar would do to adults, albeit with a little bit more theatrics given the ages that we're speaking to here. Meanwhile, on the news side, Betty drops a small line that made headlines around the internet.
Hey, honey.
Deet, you're not gonna believe it.
Should I be worried?
No, unless you're afraid of facing your past.
I do have that one ex-girlfriend who still kind of scares me.
The reason this is so notable is because within the original series, Betty was married to someone named Howie, Phil and Lil's biological father, who does not show up in this revival. I don't know, nor do I really care about the reaction to the change of the character, because within this episode, she was just a really cool character, a really chill character, and that line was just a one and done thing, rather than a giant focus. She was very much needed to balance out Dee Dee's tense and anxious behavior. Getting back over to the diagnosis via Angelica, licensed doctor, she explains that Chucky has wormyoliosis, a condition with no known cure that will cause Chucky to turn into a worm, in which they all believe it because that's what makes the show work, plus they're like 1 or 2. This sinks deep into Chucky's subconscious, leaving him with a nightmare about being turned into a worm to be eaten himself. It's rather graphic, I guess, for his imagination, but animated well, and it shows you how seriously he is taking this and how serious his friends are willing to help him out. As Chucky locks himself in a closet, everyone kind of handles the situation differently. Some in a friendly way, others in a different way.
Guys, this is bad. We got to help Chucky. You're right, Tommy. Let's go get him some worm food. We'll be right back, worm boy.
Ah, preparing for transformation early, I see. So while the young ones are all reacting to this terrible news, the adults are gearing up to go to a concert featuring a band called Y2K, coming out for one time only. Dee Dee, who I said is very anxious, very cautious, she'd have the neurotic trait if we were playing Sims 3, is nervous about leaving Tommy alone, alleging that she's never had a night away from Tommy, never had an evening away from Tommy. Lou is rather carefree about these things, not worrying about the details, and insists that Dee Dee deserves a night off, and what would have been a year away from never being away from Tommy, even for a single evening.
Oh, hey, everyone. I wish we could stay. Not really. Sorry, I'm on an honesty cleanse. Jonathan's circling the block. Remind me to tell him he's not getting that raise. This cleanse is freeing.
Here's my honesty cleanse. Your head looks like an onion. Your eyebrows look like burnt potato wedges. Ugh, she's so unlikable. And that's really a good thing. She'd even comment that Angelica shouldn't drive her toy car in Grandpa's house, however, because Grandpa's rugs would mess up the wheels. Not because she's outside and all of the outside mud, dirt, and grass would get in on the inside, but because her toy wouldn't be as pristine as it is.
You two aren't coming to the concert? I thought you and Y2K went together like hydrogen and fluoride.
If he does that again, hit him.
I looked in my mommy's medicine book, and I found the cure for wormyoliosis. The man got a dinosaur tooth and used it to wish away the worms. Now he's happy.
Glad to see Susie coming in clutch with the cure. That sounds about right for wormyoliosis. I'm not a doctor. Not only do they set off into the park to find said dinosaur tooth, but it is Angelica who puts them up to the destination and journey via her toy car. And you may ask, why would Angelica give them the transportation via her precious car if she clearly said that there was no cure? Surely that's a little inconsistent. Wouldn't she then double down on a lie and say there's no cure? That doesn't make any sense. Well, turns out Lou is making cookies, and Angelica learned that she'd have to share the cookies, so in order to not have to do so, she sent them away into the night. And Spike, the dog, also runs off. Hey man, I never said it had to be complex, but that's still evil.
My poor baby, I'm sorry, I'm leaving you. When you get older, tell your therapist this was your father's idea.
Deed, chill. It's one night out. What could happen?
Yes, these two scenes are spliced together as such, but that is the true essence of Rugrats. This adventure happens under the noses of the adults who assume so little of the children they have. All of them retain those charming and charismatic traits that made them so popular in the first place that this new generation, if they're up for it, can fall in love with the show the same way that the 90s did. If there's one thing to say about the show, it has charisma. At least someone, however more likely the whole team, loves the show, and it shows because these characters are treated as such, getting their time to shine with with dialogue that only makes sense for them. Their motivations are simple, anyone can understand them, can get behind them, can root for them to find a solution to their problems, and even though changes were made, those changes were not intrusive or create a dissonance with what you know about the show, the lore, the world, and the characters that reside in it. Also, that car that nearly hit those 1, 2, and 3-year-olds did not slow down at all.
Hey, what's this, Cynthia? Looks like a grandma store. Ooh, that one has pink hair.
So, remember that dating app I briefly spoke about earlier? Angelica got her hands on it and is swiping up tons and tons of potential dates for Grandpa Lou. One flaw about Angelica is that while she can trick the babies, she can't trick the adults, and sometimes even her own plans run into inconsistencies, as she's 3, and she wouldn't think about all the possibilities of things that might happen, as her pride clouds rational thought, sometimes, or most of the time. Obviously, if you're going to send babies out on a wild goose chase, at some point, some adult would want to check in on them. In this case, Dee Dee. This realization sinks into Angelica that she may have a problem to deal with that is her fault, given that she's the one who opened the door for them to leave. However, put a pin in that for now.
Seriously? I have to start all over?
Don't worry, I'll help you fix them.
It's too dry. You use too much flour.
The answer is always more butter.
Where do you want this one, Grandpa?
That went a lot better than I anticipated. Like, in my head, if I were to accept 3 different panda girls on whatever dating app out there for pandas, and then had them all show up at the same time on the same day at my house, the last thing that I would expect for them to want to do is to cooperate with me in the kitchen and help me make cookies. Although that would be a really great video if someone could pull that off. In fact, just the sheer fact that Angelica thought this app was a grandma shop is amazing to me, given that all she did was hit a green accept button. Apparently, once you do, said person gets your address and comes over within a few hours. Are these all the single moms in my area?
I know a thing or two about a cookie.
I'm not gonna rank them. I'm not gonna rank them. Why would I rank them? I'm not. Ugh, I feel ashamed.
Well, let's park here.
Still better driving than GTA Online. Through the journey in the park, we get to empathize a bit more with Chucky, as he doesn't know that Angelica is only playing a mean-spirited joke on him, and truly has no idea of what she's talking about. To him, all he wanted was to be as brave as Tommy, Susie, Phil, and Lil. And through that, in his brain, he's going to be turned into a worm, because he picked the wrong moment to be brave. Speaking of moments, here's another one.
Hello, Lou! You are a silver beagle. Is tie-dye back in?
I'll take those, thank you.
Huh? Look, Graham, I'm afraid there's been some kind of mistake, but the closest I came to barking up that tree was a mishap at a Save the Whales dinner. I hope you understand.
Sure. Keep the flowers.
He handled rejection a lot better than I would have, and not even on an envious or angry thing, but just how awkward that situation would be. Fortunately, he's in the nicest, most forgiving town that I've ever seen.
Why would you tell me the babies were okay when you knew they weren't even there?
It's all Susie Carmichael's fault. She had to show off with her dumb medicine book. I know I was bad, but nobody expects me to be an angel.
Hey there, Lou. You seem like you're in a rush.
You have no idea. You got room for 2 more on that thing?
A fun fact about the original Rugrats show is that Arlene Klasky, 1/3 of the creators of Rugrats and 1/3 of the founding members of Klasky Chupo, did not like how mean Angelica was in the first couple of seasons of Rugrats, and it led into a lot of writing disputes. Here, she's seen as quite mean, but I think it works out really well as the reaction of the others makes it seem like not such a big deal. However, this is just one episode of the 26 ordered by Nickelodeon, so I could be wrong there. However, her speaking about how she didn't like how Susie had to quote save the day shows how Angelica does view Susie a bit differently than the others, given how she's a bit older than most of them. Getting back to the pursuit of this dinosaur tooth, we would see Tommy's bravery on display doing something that I think most adults wouldn't do, including myself, and that is climb this statue. Ignorance is bliss, because the first thing I would think is that my shoes are not gonna be on my side, or this statue is going to break under my weight, and I'm not even that fat. Like, I'm really not.
Tommy, come back! I can be a worm boy if I gots to, even if I don't look like me, but I gots to eat grown stuffs just so I could make poop for the garden. And I got to go live in dirt all alone. It's okay.
If you turn into a worm boy, we'll still be your friends, 'cause you'll still be Chucky on the inside.
Seeing his friend up at dizzying heights compels him to set aside his fears and climb the tower anyway, because bravery is not about being not afraid of something, but about doing something despite being afraid of said thing. I'm sure Chucky is still afraid of heights, and that in future episodes, if heights do come into play, that Chucky would still be afraid of them, but the thought of seeing Tommy doing all of this and nearly falling, hurting himself, is not worth it to him, but to Tommy, he sees it as what a friend should do. And it's not like he's doing much else, given that Chucky is a really good friend to him, so of course he would help, given that they know what the cure is. This is charisma. This is what would get me to watch more episodes. This is how you should do a reboot. The way I still enjoyed the presence of Daffy and Bugs in a suburban setting to the way that I enjoyed the Turtles in a newer dynamic, or even how I enjoyed the Animaniacs reboot, it's about making the characters enjoyable, the adventures amazing, and understanding why people like the original in the first place. It's almost never a surface level thing. It does require work, which this team did, and it really made for a great first impression. As Tommy and Chucky share a rather wholesome moment, this happens.
He's a goner.
You were so young.
As the duo hold on for dear life, a fall from that height being rather fatal, putting the age aside, their grip unfortunately isn't enough to keep them safe as the dinosaur tooth breaks off, leading to their doom, or it would if Spike, who had also ran away, didn't come in to save the day. I don't mind this because to me that fits. If he also ran away, I mean, it's possible that he could have been here. And they didn't focus too much on making that seem like a bigger thing than it was. So why not have him at the park as well? It sure beats two babies dying via blunt force trauma. Ugh, even that sentence just sends chills down my spine. Much more than the Angelica theory anyway. So with that tooth, Chucky is able to save himself from this fictitious disease via a wish, and all is well.
Kids, thank goodness. Oh man, you all had me so worried. Oh, thanks, Graham. I couldn't have done it without you.
Oh, I'll text you about Tuesday night bingo.
You're on.
Bye-bye.
What a wholesome and happy way to end that. The city is like the nicest place ever. Hey, I don't swing that way, but I'm up for bingo on Tuesday. It just feels pretty sweet and genuine, and they do spend the rest of this episode catching up and giving old fans that feel of seeing their favorite characters together, as Tommy and the others rush the stage of Y2K, making it a rather interesting story back home. So does Rugrats fit on Nickelodeon today? Yes. They made it beautifully. The characters are charismatic, the story was chill, it was very immersive. I love how smooth the animation is, and I'm ready to see more adventures with one of the icons of 90s animation. Until then, thank you so much for your time. Take care. Alpha out.